Marlon decides that in his second life in another world he will enjoy a relaxed life and become popular with women. However, he soon realizes that even a simple swipe of his hand can change the surrounding terrain, showing that he possesses unusual power. A few minutes earlier, he lies on the ground and slowly opens his eyes. He tries to remember what he was doing before, but he cannot even remember his own name. At that moment, a strange interface appears and displays a welcome message to the other world. Marlon feels shocked by this message. From the interface, he learns that his name is Marlon. The interface explains that his previous life is close to disappearing, so it places his soul into a new body and reincarnates him. This confirms that he died in his previous world. However, he still cannot remember anything about his former life, including what kind of person he was or whether he had a family. Since he remembers nothing about himself, he wonders why he is reincarnated, but the interface only says that the reason is a secret. Marlon sits up and notices that his hair is long, which he dislikes because it reminds him of a costume. He then looks at his reflection in a nearby stream and becomes surprised by how handsome he looks. His appearance makes him wonder if he might be a god or a prince, but the interface explains that he is simply a human, one race among the human folk in this world. Seeing his attractive face, Marlon feels confident that he can easily become popular with women. He begins to imagine such a future. He then asks whether elves and beast folk exist in this world, and the interface confirms that they do. With this information, Marlon decides to make the most of his new life. He plans to get close to a cute elf girl, become popular with many women, and live a calm and enjoyable life. The interface then explains that it is known as a god in this world and that Marlon is the only one who can see its writing. Marlon wonders if his current body is created by it, and the interface confirms this. At that moment, he suddenly hears a voice telling him to look behind him. When he turns around, he sees a huge slime monster jumping toward him. Marlon realizes that he might die again before he even has the chance to enjoy his new life or become popular with women. At that moment, a mage appears and uses wood elemental magic to destroy the slime monster. Marlon feels shocked as he realizes that what he just witnessed is magic. The interface explains that he is also capable of using magic, which makes him happy. The mage checks if he is safe. When Marlon looks at her, he realizes that she is an elf. She appears very timid but also very cute. Marlon believes this is a perfect opportunity. He thinks his handsome appearance might help him gain her trust and possibly make her like him. He thanks her for saving his life and asks for her name. The elf shyly introduces herself as Sophia while slowly stepping back in a timid manner. Marlon begins to worry that he might have done something wrong or that she feels suspicious of him. He starts wondering how handsome men are supposed to behave in this world. Sophia then tries to ask who he is. Marlon begins introducing himself, but suddenly a goblin appears and rushes toward them. Marlon feels shocked that monsters keep appearing so often. The goblin charges directly at Sophia, who freezes in fear. Marlon quickly pushes her away to protect her. The goblin bites his hand, but he realizes he is not hurt at all. With a simple swipe of his hand, he releases a powerful sonic strike that sends out a huge force and changes the shape of the surrounding ground. Marlon becomes stunned by the power he produces with such a small movement and wonders what is happening. The interface then tells him to check his status. When Marlon does so, he sees that every one of his abilities has reached the maximum level of 10,000. After seeing this, he begins to realize with concern that the peaceful and relaxed life he hoped for may no longer be possible. Meanwhile, Sophia seems to notice something unusual. Marlon worries that she might see him as a monster and quickly tries to explain himself. However, Sophia instead wonders if he might be a god. The interface then explains that when it created Marlon's body, it used its own appearance as a model. Sophia also points out that his face and appearance look very similar to the figure she once saw in a children's book about a god. The interface reassures Marlon that he is not actually the same being. However, Marlon still tries to explain to Sophia that he is just a normal human. Sophia finds it difficult to believe because his eye color and hair match the description of the god from the book. Marlon begins to panic. He realizes that he is so powerful that he might accidentally destroy things if he is not careful. Because of this, he starts doubting whether he can even live a normal life anymore. He feels frustrated toward the god responsible for this situation. However, when he looks at Sophia, he feels less upset because he finds her very cute. Marlon then asks what she is doing alone in the forest. Sophia shows him a bag filled with herbs and explains that she is collecting them because her older sister is very sick. She wants to help her sister feel better, even if only a little. Marlin becomes impressed by her effort. He notices that she looks tired and worn out from working so hard. He initially wants to pat her head but remembers the powerful attack he released earlier with just a simple movement. Because of that, he carefully controls himself. Instead, he praises her determination and says that her hard work is admirable. He also gently warns that working too hard could damage her health, so she needs to take care of herself. After hearing this, Sophia suddenly begins to cry. Marlin becomes worried and asks if she is hurt. Sophia explains that she is not injured. She simply feels emotional because no one has ever treated her so kindly before. Marlin feels sympathy for her situation. He decides that before learning how to properly control his power, he will first become her friend. He offers to help her collect herbs, saying that helping her is the least he can do since she saved his life. Marlin realizes that many things in his second life are already very different from what he expected, but he still feels that his new life has begun on a positive note. Marlin apologizes to Sophia because he cannot properly control his power even though he promised to help her. He feels useless because of this. However, Sophia reassures him that he has actually been a great help. She explains that his magic allows him to store the herbs they collect, which makes their work much easier. Sophia hands the herbs she gathers to Marlin, and he stores them using his alternate space magic. While he does this, Sophia watches him closely and feels amazed. She remembers how he changed the shape of the ground earlier with only a simple swipe of his hand, which makes his power even more impressive to her. Meanwhile, Marlin quietly feels grateful for being reincarnated. His dream of becoming popular with girls now feels closer than ever. After a while, Sophia asks how she can repay him for everything he has done for her. Marlin quickly tells her that she already helped him a lot. He explains that she saved his life earlier and also taught him many things about the area when he had no idea where he was. Even after hearing this, Sophia still feels that her help is not enough to repay him. Marlin then suggests something simple. He asks if she would like to become his first friend. The suggestion surprises Sophia because she never expected such an offer. After thinking for a moment, Sophia says that she cannot accept. She believes that someone as lowly as herself is not worthy of becoming friends with someone like him. However, Marlin keeps insisting until she finally agrees. In the end, Sophia becomes Marlin's first friend. Sophia then leads Marlin to the front gate of Nizion. It is the first time Marlin sees a place like this, and everything feels new to him, almost like traveling to another country. He becomes even more surprised when he sees armored soldiers guarding the entrance. The soldiers explain that anyone who wishes to enter the town must either show an identity card or pay an entry fee of 2 silver coins. Marlin feels extremely shocked when he hears the price. To him, the fee sounds very expensive because it is roughly equal to a full week's worth of food. Before he can react, Sophia steps forward and shows her identity card to the guards. Even so, the soldiers continue to look at her with suspicion. When it becomes Marlin's turn, he says that he will pay the entry fee. However, the guards tell him that if someone does not have an Adventurers Guild identification, they must remove their hood. They also explain that this rule exists so they can check whether newcomers are dangerous criminals or filthy demi-humans before allowing them into the town. Marlin soon learns that humans in this world greatly dislike other races such as elves, beast folk, and dwarves. Because these races resemble demons in appearance, humans fear them and refer to them as demi-humans. As a result, they face strong discrimination and hatred from human society. After learning this, Marlin finally understands why Sophia cried earlier. He realizes that such discrimination exists everywhere, as people often treat others badly simply because they look different. When Marlin removes his hood at the gate, the soldiers react with surprise. They are shocked by his holy silver hair and golden-colored eyes. Seeing their reaction, Marlin quickly explains that he is not a god. However, the soldiers instead question why someone who looks like a noble would associate with a lowly demi-human like Sophia. Hearing Sophia described that way makes Marlin angry, and his expression immediately changes. He firmly tells them that it is none of their business who he chooses to associate with. Without saying anything more, he takes Sophia's hand and decides to leave, not wanting to listen to the soldiers any longer. This encounter makes Marlin realize how deeply flawed the views of that world are. Even though Sophia is still a child, he begins to suspect that she has already gone through many painful experiences. Thinking about this, he asks Sophia if it is possible to register for adventurer cards at the Adventurers Guild. Sophia confirms that it is possible and offers to guide him there. Not long after, they arrive at the Adventurers Guild. While standing outside the building, Sophia explains what activities take place on each floor. As he listens, Marlon thinks about how much he would have enjoyed this new world if it were not for the harsh and unfair attitudes within it. Sophia then encourages him to go inside. As soon as they enter the guild hall, some people who recognize Sophia begin speaking badly about her. Feeling ashamed, she lowers her head and avoids looking at anyone. Marlon notices this but remains silent for the moment. Soon after, a woman working at the counter greets them and introduces herself as Natalie. Sophia takes the lead in speaking and explains that they came to sell some herbs and also to register with the Adventurers Guild. Natalie then asks if Sophia is the one selling the herbs, and Sophia quietly confirms that she is. From the way Natalie speaks to Sophia, Marlon realizes that there are still people who do not discriminate against demi-humans. Natalie asks them to fill out some forms for their registration. While doing this, Marlon uses his magic to bring out the herbs they collected. The moment the herbs appear, both Natalie and the people nearby become shocked by the huge quantity. The pile is so large that it almost fills the entire table. After Marlon properly releases all of them from his storage magic, Natalie begins to examine the herbs carefully, checking both their quality and quantity. After finishing the inspection, Natalie tells Sophia that the herbs are worth 7 gold coins. Hearing this amount completely overwhelms Sophia because she never expected to receive such a large sum of money. She feels extremely grateful to Marlon for helping her. However, Marlon tells her that the credit belongs to her since she is the one who worked hard to gather the herbs while he only helped store them. He encourages her to accept the payment from Natalie. As they move to the final stage of registering with the Adventurers Guild, Natalie asks Marlon to show his face in order to prevent criminals from pretending to be adventurers. Marlon removes his hood. The moment Natalie sees his face, she becomes extremely shocked. Before she can say anything, Marlon quickly explains that he is not a god and only happens to look similar to one. Even so, Natalie remains stunned by his appearance and quickly rushes away to prepare their adventurer cards. While they wait for Natalie to return, several girls in the guild notice Marlon. They immediately become interested in him and begin surrounding him. They praise his handsome appearance and ask him to tell them stories. At first, Marlon feels awkward about being surrounded by so many girls. However, he eventually responds by telling them that the most important story he has is about Sophia. He explains that Sophia saved his life and helped him during his time in this world, and because of that he considers her his best friend. He also asks them not to treat her badly. After hearing this, the girls feel uncomfortable and soon leave. Sophia, however, feels very happy because Marlon openly calls her his friend. Not far away, the older brother of one of the girls watches the situation. After seeing Marlon reject his younger sister's attention, he becomes angry and confronts Marlon. He demands to know why Marlon would choose someone like Sophia over his sister. From the way the man speaks about Sophia, Marlon realizes that he also looks down on demi-humans. Marlon responds firmly, which only makes the man angrier. In his rage, the man threatens to kill both Marlon and Sophia. He throws a punch at Marlon, but before the blow can land, Marlon has already moved away. The sudden movement shocks the attacker. For a moment he believes Marlon has disappeared, but he soon realizes that Marlon is simply moving so fast that he cannot keep up with his speed. At first, Marlon does not plan to deal with the man. However, when the man threatens to harm both him and Sophia, Marlon becomes angry and activates his control over his power. Marlon moves toward the man so quickly that the man does not even notice his approach. When Marlon lightly touches the man's cheek, the result is far stronger than expected. The man is suddenly sent flying and crashes hard into the wall, as if he has been forcefully pushed. Marlon becomes shocked by what just happened. He knows he tried to control the strength of his touch, yet the effect is still extremely powerful. The sudden impact surprises everyone present, including Sophia, who also stands there in shock after witnessing the scene. Natalie quickly hears the loud noise from the hall and rushes out to see what happened. When she arrives, she sees the man crashed against the wall and realizes that Marlon caused the incident. Surprised by the violence inside the guild, she reminds him that she had already explained the rules earlier and warns that he will have to take responsibility for his actions. Despite the situation, the registration process eventually finishes, and Marlon receives his adventurer's card. After that, he and Sophia leave the guild together. While walking away, Sophia thanks Marlon for defending her earlier. Marlon responds calmly and explains that he only did what a true friend should do. Sophia then leads him to an inn. When they arrive, Marlin becomes amazed by the building because it is the first time he has seen such a place. He admires how large and spacious it looks. After entering, Marlin notices that the clouds in the sky have cleared. He mentions that the full moon is now visible. Hearing this reminds Sophia of her older sister. She quietly hopes that her sister can also see the moon from where she is resting. Marlin then remembers that Sophia once mentioned her sick older sister named Sonia. Sophia begins thinking about the past and feels that her sister's illness might somehow be her fault. She recalls events from 2 years earlier. On the day she and Sonia celebrated their birthday, Sonia had prepared a small feast for them and even managed to give her gifts. Both sisters were surprised and happy that Sonia had worked so hard to make their day special. Elves are generally known to be skilled with magic, although most of them do not possess extremely large amounts of mana. Because of their limited power, their settlement relied on a magical barrier to protect themselves and live peacefully. One night, however, the barrier was suddenly broken. A large group of monsters invaded the settlement and attacked the elves. During the chaos, Sophia and Sonia's parents fought to protect the village. In the end, they sacrificed their lives while telling their daughters to run away and survive. The two sisters escaped and eventually arrived at the town of Nizion. Life there was difficult because humans often discriminated against them as demi-humans. Even so, the sisters endured it because it was still safer than constantly living in fear of being attacked by monsters. During those difficult times, Sonia often comforted Sophia and promised that she would always protect her. To support them, Sonia eventually became an adventurer so she could earn money for their living. However, the constant danger and exhaustion from that work slowly damaged her health. Over time, she became seriously ill, and eventually her condition worsened until she became bedridden. Even while lying sick in bed, Sonia continues to promise that she will always protect her younger sister. Sophia, however, tells her not to worry about that anymore. Instead, Sophia decides to become an adventurer herself. Through her work, she eventually learns that certain herbs can help treat her sister's illness, so she begins collecting them to try to heal Sonia. Sonia has endured many hardships. She once faced the constant fear of being killed by monsters outside the town, and even inside Nizion she had to deal with strong discrimination from the townspeople. While telling Marlin about their past, Sophia becomes overwhelmed with emotion and begins to cry. After calming herself slightly, she tells Marlin that she wants to return home to check on her sister. Marlin says goodbye and watches as she leaves. After she goes, Marlin feels troubled. He wishes he could comfort Sophia by patting her on the head, but he is afraid that his overwhelming power might hurt her. In his frustration, he wishes that the god responsible for his reincarnation would reduce his strength. The interface responds and explains that removing a blessing given by a god is impossible and could even cause his death. This shocks Marlin. However, the interface then explains that there is a safer solution. The most practical method is for Marlin to seal his own power using magic. Hearing this suggestion immediately interests Marlin, and he asks how to perform such a technique. Since his magic naturally has the ability to nullify the powers of others, the interface explains that he can apply a sealing spell to himself. After practicing for a while, Marlin successfully learns how to control the sealing method. Later, Marlin decides to return to the Adventurers Guild to take on a quest. He would have preferred to work together with Sophia, but since she is not there, he chooses to go alone. While looking through the quest board, he carefully searches for monsters that are not too powerful. Even though he knows that his abilities are already far above normal in this world, he still prefers to avoid drawing too much attention to himself. On his way to take a quest, Marlin hopes that he will only encounter the slimes he chose to hunt and nothing more dangerous. While walking, he asks the interface whether there is any offensive magic he can use. The interface explains that there are many kinds of attack magic. It tells him that the 6 basic attributes of magic are commonly used in the world: fire, water, wind, earth, holy, and dark. Among these, the interface especially recommends holy magic for Marlin. While Marlin is still communicating with the interface, the man from the previous day notices him again. Seeing Marlin talking to himself, the man becomes curious and approaches him. This time he claims that he has brought a mage and several companions with him. He confidently says that the mage will block Marlin's attacks, so Marlin will not be able to use any tricks. Marlin feels confused about why the man has come to confront him again, so he calmly asks what he wants. The man then says that he only wants Marlin to swear that he will never side with demi-humans again. Hearing this makes it clear to Marlin just how much hatred the man holds toward demi-humans. While they are still arguing, a monster suddenly appears behind Marlin. Marlin immediately turns his attention toward the creature to deal with it. However, the man who had been challenging him suddenly panics at the sight of the monster and nearly faints from fear. His companions quickly run away to save themselves, leaving him behind. In the end, Marlin is the one who rescues him from the danger. The man soon notices the creature approaching them and immediately recognizes it as a Garm. The sight shocks everyone. Marlin is especially surprised because a third-grade Garm should not normally appear so close to a town. Before they can react properly, four more monsters suddenly appear. With several monsters surrounding them, escape is no longer possible. The group now has no choice but to face the danger together. Marlin tells everyone to stay close to him so he can create a barrier that will buy them some time. However, he suddenly remembers that he sealed most of his power the previous day. He begins thinking about what to do. At the same time, the man who confronted him earlier keeps pressuring him to save them, believing Marlin can simply use the same overwhelming power he showed before. Marlin tries to explain that he sealed his magic and that any barrier he creates now will not last very long. Soon after, the mage who came with the group attempts to create a barrier himself. Unfortunately, the barrier is too weak to hold the monsters back. The creatures quickly break through it. The strain of using so much power even harms the mage, and blood begins to run from his nose. Seeing that no one else can handle the monsters, the man finally surrenders to Marlin. He promises that he will never discriminate against demi-humans again and urges Marlin to save them. Gradually, the rest of the squad also gives up their hostility and accepts that they should no longer hate demi-humans. With no other choice, Marlin decides to unleash his holy magic. To everyone's shock, the display of his power instantly defeats all 5 monsters at once. The men are stunned, realizing that they had foolishly picked a fight with someone as overwhelmingly strong as Marlin. Afterward, they return to the guild, bringing the slain monsters with them. As they arrive, one of the men informs Natalie that Sophia has returned. From the way he describes her, it is clear that something serious has happened. Marlin's heart leaps with relief and joy at the news of Sophia's return. He quickly rushes outside to meet her, only to be shocked when he finds her crying. Without hesitation, he runs up to her and asks what is wrong. Sophia, sobbing, simply tells him to help her, explaining that her sister is on the brink of death.